On the 23rd of April, 2022, in Kushiro, a man walking a mountain road picked up a piece of bone about the size of a coin. It was part of a child's skull. It was 600 meters from a campsite where a 7-year-old girl had vanished 2.5 years earlier, and where 1,700 police, soldiers, and firefighters had searched and found nothing at all. They had stood down the command post 32 months before a member of the public found her by accident. 11 places in Japan where the search stopped. Some of them stopped because there was nothing left to find. One of them stopped because the police could not physically reach the scene. And at one of them, they had to bring in the army with machine guns. Number 11. A 7-year-old girl is walking a few meters behind the other children at a riverside campsite, and then she is not there. This is Tsubaki-so, an auto campground in Doshi Village, Yamanashi, about 40 miles west of central Tokyo, the 21st of September 2019. She had come with a group. The other kids went ahead. She was seconds behind them. What followed was one of the largest searches for a missing child in modern Japan. More than 1,700 people were involved. Between Yamanashi Prefectural Police, the self-defense forces, and the fire services, and they worked the riverbanks and the forest for 2 weeks. On the 6th of October, the on-site command post was dissolved. The large-scale search was over. Then, 2.5 years later, on the 23rd of April, 2022, a man out walking a mountain road picked up a fragment of skull a few centimeters across, roughly 2,000 feet from the campsite, about 600 meters. He reported it 2 days later. A shoe and a sock turned up nearby. On the 14th of May, DNA confirmed it was her. Yamanashi police formally closed the search on the 1st of July, 2022. The cause of death has never been established. There is no suspect, and there is no charge. And everything you have read online about what happened to that girl is people guessing at a gap, which I am not going to add to because the honest answer is that after 7 years, nobody knows. Can you imagine that? 1,700 trained searchers went over that ground for 2 weeks and came back with nothing at all. And then a man out for a walk found her by accident. That does not add up to me, and I could not find anybody who has explained it. Number 10 is a search where they knew exactly where everybody was and still could not get to them. Number 10. On a February morning in Hokkaido, a piece of cliff the size of an office block detached and landed on the mouth of a tunnel with a bus inside it. The 10th of February, 1996, on Route 229 between Yoichi and Furubira. The rock mass was roughly 230 feet high and 165 feet wide, about 27,000 tons of it. It comes off the face in one piece. It lands on the tunnel mouth. The portal is gone. Underneath it, there was a scheduled bus and a car with 20 people in them. Now here is why this one belongs on this list. Rescuers knew where the victims were. They knew the tunnel was intact behind the blockage, and they could not go in because the slab that had already sheared off was not the only loose rock up there. The rest of the face was still hanging, and it could come down on anybody working below. So the decision was made to blast it, which creates a problem I have not been able to stop turning over. There might still be people alive on the other side of that rubble. A big charge clears the debris faster and might kill them. A small charge is safe for them and takes days you may not have. They used small charges. It took 4 separate blasting operations before real rescue work could begin. The whole country watched it happen on television across several days. 20 people died, the tunnel was abandoned, and a replacement was built. There is a memorial at the site. Number 9 is the biggest manhunt in modern Japanese history, and the moment it walked straight past the man it was looking for. If this is the kind of hidden Japan you want more of, go ahead and subscribe because this is the only thing this channel digs into. Number 9. A detective standing in a motorway rest stop in Shiga is looking directly at the most wanted face in Japan, and he lets him walk. Between 1984 and 1985, a group calling itself The Monster with 21 Faces ran a campaign against Japan's confectionery industry. They kidnapped the president of Glico out of his own bath. They put cyanide-laced sweets on supermarket shelves nationwide. They sent taunting letters to the newspapers and the police. Police built a composite sketch of one man from witness accounts: the fox-eyed man. It is still one of the most recognizable images in Japan. Then, in November 1984, at a place called Otsu Service Area on the Meishin Expressway, a detective from Shiga Prefectural Police's First Investigation Division sees a man who matches that sketch. And nothing happens. Officers had been ordered not to make voluntary stops because a botched approach could blow a larger operation. So they withdrew. They watched him go. A later stakeout on a ransom drop failed too. And on the 7th of August 1985, the chief of Shiga Prefectural Police, Yamamoto Shoji, went home, poured kerosene over himself, and set himself alight. He died. 5 days after that, the extortionists sent a final letter. They said they were stopping. They framed it as an offering for the dead police chief. Every statute of limitations in the case expired by the year 2000. Nobody was ever charged with any of it. The detail I cannot get past is the order itself. Do not make voluntary stops. It was a sensible instruction, written by sensible people for good operational reasons, and it is the reason a man walked out of a motorway car park and was never seen again. Number 8 is the search that went to the wrong house. Number 8. The first man to call the emergency services about a poison gas attack spent the next 8 months being described as the man who did it. The 27th of June, 1994, Matsumoto, Nagano. The cult Aum Shinrikyo released sarin into a residential neighborhood from a converted truck. 8 people died. About 600 were injured. The first person to phone it in was a local man whose own wife had been overcome. She would never wake up properly again. She remained in a coma for 14 years until she died. The day after the attack, Nagano Prefectural Police searched his house on suspicion of murder, and they released his real name as the location of the search. What they found was garden chemicals, and a witness who said they had seen strange smoke coming off his property, and both of those things were later shown to mean absolutely nothing at all. You cannot make sarin from what was in that shed. The witness account did not hold up. None of that mattered for the better part of a year. The press did the rest. It took the Tokyo subway attack in March 1995 and 8 months before the search moved to where it should always have been. The chairman of the National Public Safety Commission apologized. The Nagano police chief apologized. The newspapers apologized. He spent the rest of his life giving lectures about wrongful accusation. There is no ruin here and no ghost. It is an ordinary residential street in Nagano where the police searched a grieving man's garden shed while the people who did it drove away. Number 7 is a mountain where the police had to ask Tokyo for reinforcements. Number 7. In 1933, on a volcanic island administered by Tokyo, the police ran out of officers. Mount Mihara sits at the center of Izuoshima, about 75 miles south of central Tokyo, close enough that you can be standing at the crater rim a few hours after leaving the capital. The crater itself is a shaft roughly 1,000 feet across and over 650 feet deep. In January and February of 1933, 2 young women went into it weeks apart, and a third woman was present at both. The press got hold of it and printed everything, including her name. What followed has essentially no parallel. The commonly cited figure for that year is 944 people who went into the crater, of whom 804 were men and 140 were women. Ferries arrived full of day trippers who did not board the return sailing. The island's police force could not cope with the volume. They formally requested reinforcement from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police. Watchers were posted at the tea house on the crater path. Access to the summit was restricted and patrols were stepped up. A resident petitioned the national government for permanent prevention installations, and that petition still sits in the National Archives. I should flag one thing because it is repeated everywhere in English, and I could not confirm it anywhere. The claim that Japan banned one-way ferry tickets to the island. I found no primary source. Treat it as a story people tell. The island markets the Crater Rim Walk as its main attraction today. Number 6 is a place where the search is still running, 4 times a year, forever. Number 6. There is a lake on a Gunma volcano where the danger is not the water. It is the AR just above the ground, and somebody has to go and measure it 4 times a year. Kusatsu Shirane is an active volcano northwest of Tokyo, and its Ugama crater lake is a startling color, a kind of milky green. It draws people. On the 27th of December 1971, hydrogen sulfide. Coming out of a borehole killed 6 of them. Hydrogen sulfide is heavier than air, so it does not drift off the way you would expect it to. It pools, settling into hollows and dips and staying there. And at high concentrations, it kills your sense of smell almost immediately, which means the one warning system you are relying on switches itself off before the gas does. What Japan did after that is the interesting part, and it is why this entry is here. A permanent safety council was formed. Automatic gas alarms were installed in 1977. No entry signage and physical barriers went up. And 29 separate hydrogen sulfide vents on that mountain are now inspected 4 times every year by people who walk up and check them. The current restriction is a 500-meter exclusion around the crater, roughly 1/3 of a mile. So this is not a search that was called off. It is the opposite. It is a search that never ends, run on a schedule for something that is not a body and never will be. Somebody has been checking those 29 vents for nearly 50 years. Number 5 is a search that produced a conviction, and the conviction was wrong. Number 5. Between 1979 and 1996, 5 girls aged 4 to 8 disappeared inside a 12-mile radius straddling the border between Tochigi and Gunma. 3 of them vanished from pachinko parlors. 3 of their bodies were left on riverbanks, all 3 of those in Ashikaga along the Watarase. 1 girl, taken in the 80s, has never been found at all. And one of these cases produced Japan's most notorious wrongful conviction. A man was arrested on the strength of early DNA analysis. He served 17.5 years. In 2009, retested DNA showed it was not him and he was released and cleared, which means plainly that the man who killed that child was never pursued. Because for 17 years, the file was closed and somebody else was in prison for it. 4 of the 5 cases hit their statute of limitations before the law changed. One of them, because it was legally a disappearance and got reclassified, is still investigable. Technically. In practice, nothing moves. The link between the 5 is not an official police finding, it is an investigative thesis, argued most forcefully by a journalist whose book forced the DNA retest that freed the wrong man. No arrest has followed it. I want to be careful here, so let me say it straight. I am not naming anyone, and I am not going to repeat the theory about who did it. What I can tell you is that a 12-mile stretch of riverbank in eastern Japan holds 5 cases that the state has, functionally, stopped looking at. 17.5 years is the number that sits badly with me. Not because of the man who served them, although that is bad enough. Because for all 17 of those years, everybody involved believed the search was finished. Number 4 is the search where the police dog stopped walking. Number 4. A 13-year-old girl says goodbye to her friends after badminton club and walks the last few hundred meters home along the seafront. That is the whole event. It is the 15th of November, 1977. She never arrives. That night, Niigata Chuo Police Station recalled every officer it had and worked up to 220 strong. The next day, they threw 760 riot police at it, which at the time was described as the largest search in the history of Niigata Prefectural Police. They found nothing, not a bag, not a shoe. There is one detail in the record from that search that I have not been able to put down. The police dog followed her route and then stopped. At one specific point on the road, it stopped dead and would not go any further. They took it back and ran it again. Same point. It would not continue. For 20 years, that was the entire case. A girl who walked home and did not arrive. Then, 2 decades later, it emerged what had actually happened. She had been taken off a beach a few hundred meters from that spot, put inside a bag, carried onto a boat, and taken to North Korea. The National Police Agency lists it publicly as an abduction case today. There is a named suspect and an international arrest warrant. The Japanese government maintains a standing headquarters on the issue. She has never come home. That police dog was standing in exactly the right place. It just could not tell anybody what it meant. Number 3 is where they gave up on retrieving the bodies and called in the army. Number 3. In September 1960, 2 dead climbers hung on a rope on a rock face in Gunma, about 650 feet up, and nobody could reach them. Mount Tanagawa holds a Guinness record that nobody wants, which is more mountaineering deaths than any other single mountain on Earth. Over 800 of them since the 1930s, and almost all on one feature, the Ichinokura Amphitheater, a wall of rock roughly 3,000 feet high. On the 19th of September 1960, the police guard unit responded to shouts and found 2 men from a Yokohama climbing club, aged 20 and 23, dead on their rope on the Tsuitate face. 2 days later, climbers got within 10 feet of one of the bodies and ran out of equipment. That was as close as anyone got. So the club and the families petitioned the chief of the local police station and asked for the army. On the 23rd of September, a sniper unit of the self-defense forces arrived with 2 light machine guns, 5 rifles, 5 carbines, and 2,000 rounds of ammunition. At 3 in the morning on the 24th, police sealed the area to the public. 3 in the morning. The valley is sealed. 15 shooters take position. They fire for 2 hours at a rope 140 meters away, and the rope holds. A sniper rifle finally cut it at 1:30 in the afternoon, after 1,300 rounds. There were 47 soldiers up there, 40 police officers, about 30 men from the climbing club, and over 100 journalists watching them do it. That is what recovering 2 bodies cost on that wall. This is the entry I went back to 3 times while I was writing, and it is not because of the guns. It is that 30 men from a climbing club stood there and watched it, having asked for it, because the alternative was leaving their friends hanging on a rock face in public. Since 1967, that mountain has had its own prefectural ordinance, named danger zones, a compulsory filed climbing plan, and a fine for entering illegally. Number 2 is a search that was scaled down and never resumed. Number 2, on the 23rd of April, 2022, a 19-ton tour boat went down off the Shiretoko Peninsula in Hokkaido with 26 people aboard. Shiretoko is a World Heritage Wilderness. Cliff coast, no road access, sea caves, and water cold enough to kill you quickly. 20 people were confirmed dead. 6 are still missing. The hull was found by underwater camera at about 330 feet, near Kashuni Falls, with the boat's name still legible on it. Divers and the Coast Guard worked the coastline and went into the sea caves. No body has been recovered from that search since August of that year. And then this case produced something nobody had planned for. 2 of the victims washed ashore on Kunashiri, one of the disputed islands held by Russia. 4 months after the invasion of Ukraine, Japan had to negotiate the return of its own dead through a jurisdictional dispute with Moscow at the single worst diplomatic moment in 50 years. One of the missing children has since been through a legal declaration of death, which is a court document that exists for one reason only, which is that a body does not. In June this year, the operator's president was sentenced to 5 years in Kushiro District Court for professional negligence causing death. And the families of the 6 are still there, not really looking anymore because there is nowhere left to look. They just go and they stand on a coastline, and that is the whole thing they're able to do. Before number 1, do me one quick favor and tap the like button. I am still getting this channel off the ground, and it helps more than you would think. Number 1. At 11 minutes past 2 in the morning, on the 18th of August, 1968, a slab of hillside about 330 feet long let go above a road in Gifu and pushed 2 coaches through the guardrail into a river. The road is Route 41 above the Hida River Gorge. 6 buses had been stranded there by the storm, carrying a company outing. The river below them was running 100 feet above its normal level. 2:11 in the morning, the slab lets go, the debris hits the road. 2 coaches go through the guardrail. The river takes them. 107 people were on those 2 buses. 104 died. 3 survived. 4 minutes later, the local police substation got a report of flares on the road. The resident officer and the fire brigade set out, and they could not get there. Landslides and flooding had closed the road in both directions. They considered a detour over the mountain, judged it too dangerous, and temporarily abandoned the approach. That is in the official record in those terms. Gifu Prefectural Police did not order riot police to divert to the scene until 20 to 6 in the morning, 3 hours and 29 minutes after the buses went into the water. The next morning, one bus was found 1,000 feet downstream with 3 children's bodies still inside it. The other bus could not be found at all. So Japan did something I have not seen anywhere else. They shut the gates of a dam upstream and drained the river. They called it Operation Water Level Zero, and they ran it on the 22nd, the 23rd, and the 24th of August, emptying a riverbed to look for a coach. When they found it, there was exactly one body inside. By the middle of September, the cumulative deployment was 36,683 people, including over 9,000 soldiers, 262 vehicles, 9 helicopters, and 888 boats. Bodies washed up as far away as Eyes Bay. 8 people were never found. And the memorial that was built for them does not stand where they died anymore. In 2022, it was taken down to make room for a bypass bridge, and the stone was moved to a rest stop. And that is the image I have not been able to put down. Not the drained river, which you would think would be the one. It is a memorial standing in a car park, a few hundred meters from 8 people who are still in the ground. They moved the stone and they left the bodies where they were. Something changed for me about halfway through writing this. I started out thinking a called-off search was a failure, a thing that went wrong, that better equipment or more people would have fixed. And a few of these are exactly that. But most of them are not. Most of them are a decision. Somebody at a specific hour, on a specific day, weighed the chance of finding one more person against the cost of continuing and said stop, and then had to go and tell a family. That is somebody's actual job. There is no ceremony for it, no rank you get promoted to, and no version of it where you come out of the room feeling right about what you just decided. The 8 people still in that riverbed have been there for 58 years. Nobody is looking. And every so often, somebody out for a walk finds a piece of bone on a mountain road, and the whole thing starts again from nothing. So what do you think that call should be based on? At what point is it fair to stop? Tell me below and be honest about it, because I read them all.